morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday, May 19th. It's 9:30 a.m. We're calling to order Development, Planning, and Sustainability. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll? Present.
Here.
Thank you. We're going to start with the zoning piece. Ordinance number 561-2026 by Council Members Davis, Santana, Polensik, and Harsh. Rachel. Okay, so let me read this. An ordinance to supplement the codified ordinance of the City of Cleveland, 1976, by enacting new sections 686B, period 01, through 686B, period 11, 686B, period 99, and 686B, period 991, related to short-term rentals, and by amending section 193, period 01, 193, period 02, 193, period 03, and 193, period 021, as amended by various ordinance related to the transient occupancy tax, and by amending section 337, period 02, as amended by ordinance number 586-16, passed July 13, 2016, related to one-family district, and repealing section 337-251, as amended by ordinance number 1444-16, passed January 23, 2017, related to limited lodging in residence district. Attorney?
Thank you. There are some amendments, and those are on your tablets.
That's okay. Let me read.
Yeah.
I think I have to read all these amendments.
Well, if
Yeah.
they're on the tablets, you don't necessarily have to read them,
Okay.
but I do need to make a change in maybe even two of them. The first one that says Section 1 at new Section 686B.03 at Division B10 at the end, insert new 11 to read as follows, and it should read, proof that the dwelling is certified lead safe as described with Section 365.04.
As described. What is the difference?
Delete in compliance with. That code section requires certification for certain rental properties. Anything that is 30 days and over, 30 consecutive days and over, that's a long-term rental. STRs can't be rented for that long, so instead of complying with that, we're saying as described in that.
Got it.
It's a little bit of legalese there.
So we need to proffer a motion for that.
To amend the amendment. Yeah, it's safest to do it that way, yeah. So let's,
So I need someone.
You want to read that in right now?
sure, why not? Or we could read it in later.
Madam Chair, I'd like to start with an amendment to an amendment.
Okay.
I motion to amend the amendment.
Yes.
Seconded.
Oh, okay, so you don't have to read it.
All right.
Okay.
So I think I will read it.
Go ahead.
It's the number one, right?
It's the first one,
Okay.
yes.
In section 1 at new section 686B.03 at division B10 at the end, strike and insert new 11, read as follows. The amendment is such, instead of 11, proof that the dwelling is certified lead safe in compliance, we're going to make it proof that the dwelling is certified lead safe as described with section 365.04. Law, got that? Yes.
Got it.
Madam, that is the full amendment to the amendment.
Okay.
We can
Any discussion? No. And there was a second, right?
Yes.
Okay,
there's a
all in
second.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
We can do that one
Let's
too.
move it.
Later,
Later?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So ordinance 561-2026 is about short-term rentals. This ordinance will regulate short-term rentals, also known as STRs, as businesses through a licensing process. It provides a licensing procedure and regulations for the use and operation of STRs in residential neighborhoods. All short-term rentals must be licensed. STRs are allowed in one-family residential districts, subject to a density limitation. That density limitation is at least one or no more than 15% of the total residential units on the block or in a multi-unit building, whichever is greater. A variance is needed to exceed the density limitation. Even with the variance, the STR must be licensed. An owner of the property or a tenant with written authorization may operate the property as a short-term rental. An operator may be the owner or a designated local responsible party who will manage the short-term rental. All short-term rentals must have a local contact designated to serve as the local representative for the owner or operator who responds to complaints and must be available at all times while the STR is occupied and must be able to be present at the premises within 1 hour of receiving a call. Those are the basics.
Okay. I mean, anyone else want to share anything? Do you want to share? You know, I should have read this when we first started, so I'm going to read just some remarks because this has been a long time coming. How many years? 6 years?
6 years.
6 years, okay. So, first of all, good morning, everyone. So I should have said this, but before we start this hearing on Ordinance 561, 2025, with short-term rentals, I want to put this issue in context. First and foremost, we have to get this right. We all know that. Short-term rentals are a fact of life, and they aren't going away, for sure. And any city with tourism industry or that wants tourism industry has to have short-term rentals. At the same time, we all know the short-term rentals, when not managed properly, can be enormously disruptive nuisances to nearby residents. So we have to strike a balance. The legislation was originally introduced in 2025, and I guess that's what kind of confused me as I was looking at 2025, but it was
This is
6
the
years
third-
ago.
this is the third
This
iteration.
is the third
Yeah.
iteration, okay. And we spent the last years trying to find the balance, having conversations and soliciting community feedback. I want to acknowledge the amount of work that has been put by residents, neighborhood organizations, short-term rental operators, city departments, stakeholders, council members, Councilmember Austin Davis, Councilman Harsh. I mean, everyone has been part of this. This also, I've heard it through Councilman Hairston and Councilman McCormick. Residents voiced their concerns regarding quality of life issues posed by short-term rentals. Short-term rentals can fundamentally change the character of a neighborhood by introducing noise, parking, congestion, and safety issues. Some neighborhoods have already been deeply affected by these problems, and many council members have seen the firsthand impact short-term rentals have had. Just the other day, or just this weekend, Councilman Peleznik has spent a good part of his weekend dealing with nuisance property, short-term rental in his neighborhood. We need appropriate regulations to ensure short-term rentals. They don't turn into mini hotels, becoming exclusive commercial operations that don't belong in residential neighborhood. At the same time, we have to take care not to kill off short-term rentals and the opportunities and economic impact they can provide. That's why we have tried with amendments to this ordinance, which Rachel, you read, 561-2025. So it would establish a new framework within Cleveland's codified ordinance governing short-term rentals and providing for enforcement of city regulations. And it would also amend portions of the transient occupancy tax regulations and zoning language related to one-family districts. So I want to say to everyone who participated in providing us feedback, thank you. We heard you. We did receive some letters from some neighborhoods. There's quite a few. I won't read them, but I will tell you they have been submitted to the clerk, and they are on file. I appreciate everyone who has taken the time to engage in this process respectfully and thoughtfully. I look forward to hearing discussion and hearing questions from my colleagues. Thank you. We could actually do that now. Yes. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed up for public comment? Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I was also informed, Councilwoman Gray was working with this, with Councilman McCormick. So once again, it's been a long time coming, huh? Any public comments? Okay. First up, we have Miss Deborah Smith, if you could come up. Yes, 3 minutes. Yeah, anywhere you want, yeah. Okay. All right.
Make sure that your microphone turns green.
Yeah. Oh, right there.
Y'all can hear me.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Deb Smith. I am an Airbnb superhost. I have been an Airbnb superhost for 41 quarters. I started in 2015. I live in Tremont on Professor Avenue. To be a superhost, you have to have maintain a very high level of quality for your houses. I am here to not, and again, I'm not sure what the order is of all this, but I've been made aware that we don't mind this legislation that you guys have come up with. We think that's very, very logical. There are two things that we are opposed to. I just want to let you know I have, between me and my partner, we have 6 kids, 11 grandkids. 3 of our children are out of town. So we like the Airbnb, which is above my primary dwelling, so that when we have it for our kids when they come into town, but then as we also have it available as an Airbnb. I am retired. I am going to say right now, if I wanted to make more money, I would not Airbnb out my house. Cleveland is not New York City. We are not San Francisco. We are not replacing neighborhoods, at least not in Tremont, which is a very popular destination, with short-term rentals. There was a bubble of short-term rentals, but at this point in time, I will make more money if I rent my house out regularly. If I rent my house out regularly, I will have someone living there who could have a party, not one time, every night, with no control. And we have this in our neighborhood. We have landlords who are not present, who do not maintain their property. My Airbnb, in order to have the high rate, I have a 4.98 rating after 10 plus years. My house is spotless. It is cleaned meticulously. Our grounds are immaculate. That's the way you get people to come to your place. There is a higher level of scrutiny for Airbnb than there are for a landlord who can just rent their property out and then we don't even see them. And we have a lot of that in Tremont. Grass not being maintained, properties not being kept up. But Airbnbs are an asset to this city. This 2-day rental that these people are proposing, I'll just give you last year. I rented 113 days and my average stay was 1.7. That was my lowest rental. It is arbitrary to say that people will just have a 2-day rental. It makes people come in, they come for a ball game, they come to see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they come to Cleveland Clinic, they're here for a night, they're driving from point A to point B. 2 days is arbitrary, it makes no sense, and it will penalize someone like us. 90-day limit does not make any sense. It is not based on anything. You could have 90 days of people. This is catering to the bad actors in this city. Thank you. So please do not give in. Make logical legislation.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Next up, I have, okay, I'm sorry. Is that
It looks like Bay Tribble.
Ben Tribble? Okay, come on up. Oh, okay. Your end threw me off. 3 minutes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank the bill sponsors for advancing this important legislation. I am Ben Trimble. I'm Director of Real Estate for Ohio City Incorporated. Over the last several years, Airbnbs have been an ongoing problem in our neighborhood from a nuisance standpoint. We have had massive parties that have consumed the entire resources of the 2nd District one night last year. We've had seizure of automatic weapons. We've had rampant drug sales. And so this is something that our community is very, acutely aware of. We're very excited that there is a licensure requirement being put in place. The one thing that our board has asked for the council to consider is that we reinstitute a 90-day minimum or 90-day maximum stay for 1 and 2 family districts. We do believe that the legislation, as constructed, creates de facto hotels in single and 2 family districts that would otherwise not be allowed. Perhaps that could be compensated by increasing their use more in multifamily districts or other districts where they're more permissible. But that is the majority of the complaints that we get are from single and 2 family streets where you have homeowners next to, party houses basically that have become de facto nuisances and deteriorate the quality of life for everyone.
Got
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so that closes the public comment portion of this. So are we ready for questions, I guess? Yeah, okay. So can you explain and elaborate a little bit more on that 91 versus 365? Yes. Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, I helped draft the limited lodging, which is the current homeowner occupied. You must be homeowner occupied, and it was limited at that time to no more than 90 days. And it was specifically drafted that way because the RNC was coming, and it was a way to help our residents be able to, one, you had to be physically at your home, or it was your primary residence, and then you were limited to no more than 90 days. That was the compromise that was made. That is not sustainable, that is not actually constitutional, and it is not consistent with property rights. So that is why it is not in there now, and that is why we are shifting from the homeowner occupant. Courts have been overturning that. There have been 1 or 2 that have upheld it, but the majority of federal courts have overturned that as unconstitutional.
Got it, okay. My other question is 15% of the street. How many how many short-term rentals would be approved on a street?
Well, that would depend on how many houses there are in the block, right?
And I think that was the information we had to get from zoning. We were waiting for that.
Yeah, and I wish somebody was here from planning.
Yeah.
Is
Director,
Shannon here?
are you knowledgeable on this piece? Are they able to make it? Oh. Okay. I'm just asking questions that came yesterday from residents. I mean, we want to make sure how many houses, and also to put it out there, at this time right now, no Airbnbs are operating, short-term rentals are operating with license.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
We do not
this
have a
will-
licensing
Exactly.
process.
So now this will put a licensure in place, and no one's grandfathered in because no one has their license or.
They're only grandfathered in if they have been operating as limited lodging for at least 1 year prior to the effective date of this ordinance, and they've operated always in compliance with our code now. I have been told that there will likely be very few STRs that will be grandfathered in.
And Madam Chair, they still are required to get the license. That is,
Yes.
the grandfathering is as to the zoning and the location. The license is renewable every year.
Okay. Did you find out a number for the house? Okay, you're still looking for that?
Madam Chair, I was pretty sure our zoning administrator had given us information about it, but it may not have been, I thought it was this map, but that's the zoning. It would not be a large number because it is defined by the streets, by major streets, I believe, in the ordinance.
So would you say about 2,
At-
3?
Yeah.
Three the most.
I don't believe it'd be more than that, if my recollection. I thought that they had ran information, but I don't have that at hand.
have the information.
But it would be not more than less than a handful.
Okay. So, before I turn it over to my colleagues, I do want to talk about these properties, the bad actors, right? These are the calls that we're getting. Can you go, Rachel, through the process of how would someone put in a complaint? How would the city handle it? How would we
Sure.
revoke their license? What's the timeline?
So one of the changes that we did make to this particular piece is, and this is per Councilman Davis, he suggested that a license shall be revoked if certain nuisance activities occur. And so we've listed out these nuisance activities in the ordinance. And if these occur just once, then the license shall be revoked. And the commissioner of assessments and licenses actually could, upon his discretion, revoke any other licenses that owner of short-term rentals that the owner has.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So they would just call, they would call the police so that we could get call for services, any videos, they could submit it to the police department.
police.
And then we'll kind of, we're used basically very much similar to the nuisance law. Right?
This is a complaint-driven piece, right? So if there are, if a gun goes off and somebody will call the police and that license is going to be revoked. These nuisance activities are all criminal. So if something is going on, like trash isn't being picked up, then they'll call the health department. And that won't not necessarily be a revocation of the license, but that will be taken into consideration the following year if they reapply.
Got it. One incident, multiple incidents, is there a certain number?
For
calls.
for the nuisance activities, it is one incident, and then it can be revoked.
Okay. My last question is, these larger homes, right, in Edgewater, they're being listed as 4 bedrooms, and there's about 16 people that show up, maybe because they have the common space. How would we address that?
I believe that, like on Edgewater, that's a limited single family. Though short-term rentals are not allowed there. Period.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, the first zoning classification where they are allowed is single family,
Right.
not limited one family. And that is consistent with the zoning code now because roomers and boarders are allowed in one family, not limited one family. So that
So
is
that would
not
address the
applied
issue
to
there.
limited
Okay.
one family.
Entirely,
Yes.
okay, got it.
And that has been upheld, that we are allowed to do that.
Okay,
That is constitutional.
got it, thank you. I'll start with my vice chair, Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will note that you have 3 minutes left if you decide you want to use the rest of it. But let me restart my own timer because we are sticking to 10 minutes for everybody today, so I'm on. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Hi. This has been 6 years in the making, and please bear with me as I wax poetic a little bit. First off, I think we should remember not to let perfect be the enemy of good. There are a million different ways you can look at this and think of better ways to handle the issue of Airbnb short-term rental in the city of Cleveland. And what this accomplishes is it makes major, major strides towards regulation, something we have zero of right now. We have no regulation of short-term rentals whatsoever at all. They are operating wildly and lawlessly for the most part. I will say off the top, there is not a single short-term rental in Old Brooklyn that brings joy to the neighbors that I represent. I never get calls from anyone saying, hey, guess what, Councilman? The house next door to me was purchased and converted into an Airbnb. Yay. That does not happen. I only get calls complaining about them. And the best that can happen is that the person that manages it for like a person stays for a week or a couple of weeks and they're just sort of a normal human being that doesn't do anything wild and crazy, but that could change in a month when the next person comes in. So it's not really a good metric to just say that this house hasn't been a problem yet. That said, it's really important for me to reiterate what was just said. In the rare instances of limited single-family zoning, Airbnbs will still not be allowed. I know there were some very big concerns from folks about that issue, so let's say it again. in limited single-family zoning, where's the TV? Hey, guys, Airbnbs are not allowed. Got it? Okay. The next thing, what we're doing is very similar to the agent in charge. It's very similar to telling the people that operate Airbnbs that they must register, which is the same that we've asked now for all landlords that own rental properties in the city of Cleveland. Tell us who your local person is that we can call if there's a problem and say, hey, your gutter fell off, or hey, your tenants are wild, and go talk to them. And we're doing the same thing, similar concept, it's not a new concept, and that is also progress. The fact that this is a licensure process, that we can revoke licenses based on bad behavior and substantiated police calls, is a major step forward to reining in the lawlessness of Airbnbs. We will now have a mechanism by which to deny them the ability to use a property as an Airbnb. That is major, and that is the primary reason that I'm supporting this piece of legislation today. I also want to point out the likely result of this is that some people will get out of the Airbnb business. This will make it a little bit harder to manage an Airbnb. If you're a responsible operator and you run a tight ship, then you'll probably just go ahead and do what you got to do and keep doing your thing, and you'll be fine. But if you're a reckless operator, you might decide it's better to just go ahead and sign a one-year lease and bring in a tenant, which I would add, directly addresses the rental shortage that we have in the city of Cleveland. Right now, we do not have enough units for rent. It's driving up the cost of rentals. When Airbnbs come in, they take a unit out of the regular rental cycle. If there's 100 rentals in your neighborhood, there should be 100 places to rent, but if 20 of them are Airbnbs, there's only 80 places to rent. Now those 80 remaining places can raise their rent because there's a shortage, right? Simple supply and demand economics. This has been proven by studies across the country many, many times. So this accomplishes that as well. It eases up the rental market a little bit to probably create some more rentals available. I also want to point out that it has been absolutely impossible to enforce the 90-day restriction that was passed for the RNC. We do not have the staffing capacity in the city of Cleveland to figure out when a rental has been more than 90 days. It's never happened. I don't think we've ever had a single case come to the city that we were able to verify somebody had a rental for more than 90 days. We simply don't have staff capacity to go out and monitor this type of behavior. However, with this new legislation, we will be able to monitor police calls. We will be able to, there's a whole list of things in here they cannot do. And as council member, I hear about these things. These are the things that get reported to me. So I can be the enforcement mechanism. I can be the enforcer. Nobody can call me and tell me, hey, they passed their 90-day limit, because nobody tracks that. But my neighbors can call and tell me when the tenants in the Airbnb next to them are being obnoxious. This limits the number of people that can be in the house. This completely shuts down the party house concept. And if you turn your Airbnb into a party house, we will pull your license. You will not be able to operate the Airbnb anymore. That is a good thing. That is progress for a lot of our neighborhoods and addresses a lot of the problems that we have been dealing with for many, many years. So that is huge, that we limit the number of people that can stay there. Because again, these are supposed to be short-term, rentals while you visit town or something. They're not supposed to be party houses. There was one other thing. The fines that are laid out in this legislation, I want to make sure we understand this. There's a civil penalty, and since we're probably speaking to a large number of people watching online, I'm just going to read this today for the people that are watching this. Failure to obtain a license is a $5,000 fine. If we catch you running an Airbnb and you did not register, it's a $5,000 fine. That is not chump change. Advertising without a license is a $1,000 violation. If we go to the Airbnb website and we see you advertising your unit and you are not licensed with us, that is a $1,000 violation. Huge. Completing a reservation without a license is a $1,000 per offense. Failure to display the license is a $1,000 per violation. Offering an STR in violation of regulations or standards is a $1,000 for the first offense, $3,000 for the second offense, and operation without a variance is a $5,000 fine. That means if you were the 15%, I'm going to come back to the 15%. If the booking agent fails to register, it's a $1,500 each year of noncompliance. These are steep fines for the people that operate Airbnbs if they do not comply with the law. The 15% density, the average block in Cleveland has about 40 houses. give or take. It depends on how long your street is. But imagine if you live on most normal blocks in the city of Cleveland, there's probably 40 houses, which means at most you could put 2 because you cannot exceed 15%. And I would add that since almost none of the limited lodging in the city of Cleveland is registered, none of them are going to claim the grandfather. This is sort of, I guess I'm letting the cat out of the bag, and maybe I'm not supposed to say this part out loud until the law kicks in, but none of these folks have registered in the first place. They're all going to have to get registered, and if we catch them, they're operating without a license. Very, very few. Very, very few. I can count on one hand the number of limited lodging houses in Old Brooklyn that I know are actually licensed and registered, because it's 3. It's 3. All the rest are unlicensed, are unregistered. So, I will wrap this up and give a few minutes back, but Madam Chair, this is substantial progress. This is the only progress we've made. This is something we can work on, something that gives us teeth, something that we actually can enforce a law regarding these uses. And I encourage folks to support this. If people have questions, let's address those questions, but let's remember to not let perfect be the enemy of the good. I'll give 2 minutes back.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
And I have
Councilman
no questions. I just wanted to talk.
Harsh. Okay. Thank you, Councilman Harsh. I have Councilwoman Gray and then Councilman Davis. Go ahead, you want to
Chair,
answer?
I just
respond?
wanted to add one more thing. One thing that we did add, in addition to the civil penalties, there are also criminal penalties involved for failure to obtain a license and operation without a variance will be considered first-degree misdemeanors. So we could also charge them criminally.
And once again, their whole portfolio, I mean, every Airbnb that they own goes under that violation, correct? Like, we could revoke that license
We could.
for all of them, okay?
But
just
to be
wanna-
clear, Madam Chair, that's different than the criminal penalties. The
Okay.
criminal penalties by law must follow the evidence of a criminal matter. So that is why it is comprehensive. There's the administrative process through the revocation and the suspension or revocation of the licensing process, the civil penalties, as well as the criminal penalties. So we pretty much kitchen sinked it to give all of the tools for the variety of situations that may exist.
Got it, okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Councilman Davis, for correcting me. I did the math wrong. 15% is 6 per block, not 2.
6 per, okay. Councilwoman Gray?
All right, thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions. The first public comment, Adele Smith, when she spoke at the table, just want to have an understanding of her first statement that she said about allowing Airbnbs to be accommodated. You said something to the fact of more than 2 days? I didn't quite understand that. Where here, is it more than 30 consecutive days or 90 days? But she made a statement saying that it's,
The limitation of 2 days has been taken out, that's been removed.
okay,
So the definition of a short-term rental would be less than 30 days.
okay.
Yeah, so
All
there's no.
right, so you have an understanding of that?
Right.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to be short and brief. I really didn't have a lot of questions, but I just want to make a statement as well. I know some folks may think this is a little harsh because of the change, but because due to all the reckless entertainment of partying in these Airbnbs across the city of Cleveland, this is the reason why difficult decisions need to be decided, unfortunately, to the good ones versus the reckless ones. I have had a lot of residents across previous Ward 4, which is now the new Ward 3, still calling in on some reckless entertainment and Airbnbs. And they can't stop it. It's limited to the police to stop it when they get there. You know, it's just overwhelming for them to try to tackle 200 or 300 cars parked on the street, you know, and have invaded a person's neighborhood who pay taxes, who live in a neighborhood that they really love and want to have some peace and quiet. not saying that they against the Airbnbs, because some Airbnbs, you don't even know, that they're there. Myself, sometimes when I travel, I prefer to be there with my families, but people don't know that we're there. We in and out quiet, and that also helps the homeowner to make some money in a sense, but also if you are going against the grain of terrifying residents, they don't know what's going on. It causes havoc. So I really don't have anything against it. Change needs to happen, and these are the decisions that comes to council to make the adjustments so everyone can have some peace and quiet in their community, and this is what we're striving for. I'm going to myself support this ordinance because I understand it. And I just agree with the residents who was forceful to let me know where these Airbnb was before I came council. And now, since I know where they are, I have a more eyes view in that community when they send me pictures, when they make a phone call, and if the police can get there in time to stop the recklessness of the partying, that's a good thing. So, like I said, I'm just in support of this because changes need to be made moving forth, so everybody can be comfortable and just abide by the new laws that they forced. The reckless people forced this, not the good people. The reckless people forced this for us to make the change. So if that eliminates them from doing the reckless things that they have been getting away with for a long time, then they will have to understand how to become good, abiding citizens, to have Airbnbs, and also to come into the community to have a good time, but not being so reckless in someone else's community. So, Chair, that's all I have to say. You're welcome.
Next up, I have Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very exciting day. Rachel, congratulations for working on this for truly since before the pandemic, 6 years. It shouldn't have taken this long.
We've talked about it like birthing an elephant, right? Years long. Six elephants.
Six full elephants. I feel like I'll share some of my perspective, ask a couple questions, and then I'm really looking forward to passing this shortly. But really where I'm coming from, my perspective on short-term rentals has been informed by a few specific instances. One, for what it's worth, Councilwoman Santana, you mentioned, we can't ban Airbnbs altogether. Where will someone stay when they have a loved one at Metro Health, when they're in the hospital? And that's a very good point, always on my mind. But, of course, earlier this year, there were 2 incidents in my community on Franklin in February, which is awfully early to have Airbnb parties, of folks performing dangerous activities outside, what looked like an attempted B&E. Folks are calling me the day before Valentine's Day at 11 at night, letting me know that, boy, there's some aggressive activity and parties out of control. We can't have that. We can't build the community that we need if we're going to allow that kind of activity to occur. And really, just to build on my colleague, Councilwoman Gray's point, yes, we are here because of bad actors like that, because in the absence of regulation, we've allowed unfettered access to our communities from bad actors who are exploiting us and making profits off of our misery. And that has to be the thing we're stopping today. I also always bring up, of course, 2 things. One is, in the 40s, and I won't dox anyone here, but I'm glad to see some of my residents in the crowd tonight. There's something like 6 Airbnbs or short-term rentals all right next to each other in the middle of Ohio City, creating a little hotel block. And it has led to externalities beyond which any family should endure. The number of parties, violence, the police resources used to address that particular block has been out of control. Families have left my community because they can't take it anymore, because why would they raise their kids when they can't guarantee the next weekend won't have trash or refuse on the streets or violence or automatic weapons? And so that's why I was really excited to work with you, of course, Rachel, to describe the specific scenarios that we will no longer tolerate in our Airbnb community. Things like, you use the term criminal nuisance, I'll just add more flavor to it. We're talking about when weapons are used while intoxicated, when there's improperly discharging a firearm on prohibited premises, when there is the sale of a long-bladed pocket knife, inducing panic, failure to disperse, riot, disorderly conduct. When there are things that we cannot tolerate, that license goes away. And that license goes away for that property and potentially for the entire portfolio of properties as well. That's the most important part to me, is cracking down on violence. And I bring this up because, of course, my own experience witnessing a drive-by shooting across the street from me in Tremont, from an Airbnb party that got out of control, from my living room. I don't enjoy that. My wife's not from Cleveland, and it's always a sell to be like, honey, this is a great community. We're going to raise our kids here, and we are, but I want to make it easier to say yes and harder to say no. And that drive-by shooting, without any restrictions in place for that Airbnb to get their license revoked, was unacceptable. And that's why I'm here now, to make sure that never happens again. I'll add one detail, is that drive-by shooting had no charges, no arrests. The 2 kids who were shot did not want to talk about the people who shot them. So the people who did the shooting got away. And I think that's why this ordinance its broadness is so important, because there will never be an arrest for that shooting. We'll never know who did it, but that can't be the trigger that we wait for before we crack down on these party houses. My questions are, there were 1,001 good ideas that we discussed and that were brought to us from the community. Things like distinguishing based on zoning districts the kind of activities that could occur. If we're allowed to do things like have short-term rentals, more permissive in some multifamily districts, but less permissive in smaller districts, maybe that would be an ideal outcome. We also had things discussed like trying to support owner-occupants or primary resident Airbnbs, and find ways to maybe look at larger scale property managers where there was no owner on the premises a little harder. And so my question to the attorneys here is, like, my understanding is that was just impermissible based on state law, Sixth Circuit precedent. You guys tell me, but those kinds of things we couldn't do, right?
Madam Chair, to the councilman, correct, you're creating an equal protection problem, is the problem.
And just to spell it out, because I have actually gotten a lot of comments on this, like, why are we changing the old system, just enforce the old system? That old system made sense to me. The answer is we can't. Is that right?
That is correct, Madam Chair, to the councilman. And if I can, to the no arrest from the shooting, we made sure to incorporate it, not only our local codes, but we incorporated the state law of any one occurrence under revised code 2901.01. And as we've discussed ad nauseum preparing this, you don't have to have a conviction. The evidence is different. It's not so strict as you are in the criminal realm. So we incorporated both state and local law in that.
Grateful for that. Through the chair, that's just the kind of flexibility we're going to have to offer. Again, to Councilwoman Gray's point, we have to stretch a little further than maybe we want to as a default, because the absence of our involvement has led to extreme violence in specific instances, and we have to end that violence. I'll add, I also really appreciate my colleague, Councilman Harsh's perspective that, yes, we're eliminating loopholes. By bringing our Airbnb regulations in line with the way that we discuss most of our rentals in the city, by having this local agent requirement to somebody to talk to physically, not a third party living in California whose phone number doesn't actually work, by having a physical human being here responsible for maintaining these properties, we're creating consistency. We're eliminating ways for folks to hide in our systems, and we'll hopefully produce better results accordingly. Last thing I'll say here is this is still pretty, from my perspective, has a lot of, like, again, Councilman Harsh said, if you're abiding by our laws, if you're making sure there's no violence on your property, cleaning up after yourself, this is a very reasonable proposal. Our density requirement is a little novel for the city of Cleveland. I don't think we do anything like this elsewhere. Maybe we do, and I'm not familiar, but other cities do it. Minneapolis, San Antonio, Chicago has a density restriction for its multi-units. So we're just following in, the good thing about coming in late to the party is that there's a lot of examples for us to follow. And while every other major American city has regulated Airbnbs and short-term rentals for a decade or so, we have some good examples to draw on and lessons that we've learned from them. So that's why I'm in full support of this proposal. And again, thank you for the time, dedication, effort you've put into making this work.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Starr?
Good morning. Just for clarification, this ordinance number 561 to the viewing public, 561-2026. I have not attended any meeting. I was not involved in the drafting of this legislation. I was not included. So I spent the good portion of last night trying to understand more about this. Obviously, the Airbnb short-term rentals has been something that is, some say problematic, some say it's been great. It's always mixed feelings because we never understand. So I would ask, when it comes in terms of this short-term rentals, I would ask to the table, without disclosing your actual location, do either one of you through the chair live in the city of Cleveland?
Madam Chair, to the councilman, yes, my whole life. I was born and raised here.
All right, next. So that mean born and raised, that mean you currently still live in Cleveland? Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm a homeowner, very
Okay.
much so. I have
Next.
no plans to leave, Madam Chair, to the councilman.
Do you live?
Currently, I live in Cleveland Heights.
Okay. Within that question, when I look at the broader picture of this, are there any communities in Ohio that ban single-family zoning, or they limit owner-occupied short-term rentals? Do we have that anywhere in Ohio to anybody through the chair?
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, could you clarify that?
Because
I just want to make sure I understand your
So
question.
the
Are you
concept-
asking if they separate out to single family or not? I know we looked at Columbus. I know we looked at Toledo. We looked at the big cities. We looked at both outside of Ohio and within Ohio. I have Columbus on me. I do believe that it allows within residential. I don't recall exactly and specifically. I know we started very broadly outside because of the case law kept changing and changing. And it really did swing away from in favor of the cities, and now it's kind of swinging back in favor of regulations, given all of the nuisance problems. So we did focus most recently in the last 9 months or so, we focused very strictly on what is going on in Ohio and federally in the Sixth Circuit. So we looked at like Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, that kind of stuff. And I believe the answer is yes. I'd have to double check, but I believe the answer is yes. The majority of Ohio does, the cities do regulate and allow for and regulate within single families. It's part of the bundle of rights that you have as a property owner.
Thank you. I asked that question because some of the things I noticed is currently we have a current law, which is 337.251, right, which was passed in 2017, January 23rd of 2017. Then we have 588-2024, which was introduced. And then we have this 561-2026, which we are currently at. So one of the things I'm trying to understand is why are we basically, from my standpoint, it's like we repealing from what we currently have and adding this instead of strengthening what we currently have. And why is the sudden change? So my question would be, just as quick as possible, why are we repealing 337-251 instead of strengthening it?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. To Councilman Starr, that is the limited lodging, and that the most recent change was 2017. It was originally enacted 2013 or 14 for the RNC. I did draft that.
Yep.
We followed what everybody else was doing, San Jose. We really did follow where everything was, trying to keep it to the homeowner occupant neighborhood, keeping it cohesive. That has been, for the most part, consistently knocked out by federal courts for violation of the Dormant Commerce Clause and not allowing, treating non-homeowner occupants differently than homeowner occupants in the short. The courts have thrown those out. We've been, I guess, lucky not to be challenged on that, which I guess that's letting the cat out of the bag. So it has been consistently upheld as unconstitutional, that scheme.
I hear that, and I understand what you're saying, but in 2023, Cleveland Heights passed a stricter ordinance in which they do have rules and regulations for limiting of owner or ensuring owner occupancy is required in Cleveland Heights, where we just found out that our lawyer lives at. So why would we pass something without the same restriction in your backyard versus what we have in the city of Cleveland through the chair?
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, we took the best of regulations of where we could find based upon the development of the case law to what will be found reasonable, rational, and upheld. I can only say that this is where we worked from. I am unfamiliar with Cleveland Heights. I can't speak to Cleveland Heights, but this has always been where we were focusing and making the best of what we could with where the both state and federal case law was upholding and finding as a reasonable, rational regulation.
So I would definitely include, through the record, Cleveland Heights short-term rental ordinance number 190-2023. Cleveland Heights has a stricter owner occupancy. It separates short-term rentals only units, regular rental units, and owners occupied houses. Owners occupied short-term rentals require the owner to have occupied the property for at least 270 days in the prior calendar year, and non-owner occupied short-term rentals cannot be rented for 1 to 6 day stays. So from this ordinance that I pulled, they have more stricter owner occupancy, where we have once implemented that in ordinance number 337.251, which was introduced in 2016, not 2013, based on our charter, and it has different restrictions that making sure we have owner occupied rentals. Then we have 588, 2024. It says nothing like that, and then we have 561 with nothing like that. So what I'm trying to get an understanding, because we here with this ordinance, and I think we haven't properly vetted it, and we now talking about passing something, and it's going to be great, but it's like we still are limited to ourselves because we're not going to get to that common goal. And I know I have an area where there's a lot of short-term rentals, and what I'm dealing with is people calling my office talking about the fact that people and owners of buildings is just renting out their apartments for anyone just so they can fill them up. And therefore it cause challenges and problems for those tenants in that building who possibly have. So what I'm trying to say is, why aren't we strengthening what we currently have with this new ordinance as opposed to what we're currently trying to do? I don't see where we're doing anything to make sure it's strengthened, to make sure we hold people accountable for what they are doing in the city of Cleveland, through the chair.
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, it sounds like from what you've read of Cleveland Heights ordinance, they just haven't been challenged yet on the owner occupancy question. Everything goes until it is challenged and a court reverses it. But if I take what you read as their ordinance, it's just not been challenged yet.
Okay.
And I would say we are strengthening, because this licensing scheme would give your residents a way to have an enforcement arm to go for those situations that you've described.
Yes, and I think that I do definitely have just a couple more questions, and I'll be brief with the questions. Why does this ordinance remove the 91-day annual cap? Why? Through the chair.
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, for the same reason of the owner occupancy of limitation and subject to challenge.
Okay, should a residential home be allowed to operate as a short-term rental 365 days a year? Through the chair.
A residential home. So long, Madam Chair, to the Councilman, as long as it's not in a limited, I know I was going to, as long as it's within the correct zoning district and as long as it meets the correct density limitation and has the proper licensing and is not a problem to which it is subject to revocation. It is then up to the owner to determine, or the operator, how long they are going to do that.
So how would a city distinguish between a homeowner occasionally renting space and an investor running a commercial lodging business? Through the chair. You can put me back on. Yeah, how do you tell the difference between a homeowner, like you heard from the guests here, that they say, hey, they occasionally rent out their stuff, versus somebody who's saying, I'm buying up properties and I'm just running a whole lodging commercial business where I just got a whole bunch of Airbnbs, versus then a homeowner who say, I left out of town for these 2 weeks, or when the snow comes in, I move to Florida to my other house and I Airbnb my house out. How do we distinguish between the two, through the chair?
Why would we need to distinguish that?
Because it's important to understand that we're telling everyone it's okay to operate Airbnb short-term rentals. Rather, you own a property, you can just buy up stuff and do it and run a business of lodging, as opposed to you being someone who lives in their home and you step away for a couple times a year and you rent it out and Airbnb out. Like,
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, they are all both still subject to the same
Right.
regulations under this law.
and Madam Chair, if you want, you can put me back in. I got some more
We're
questions.
gonna do that. Okay, thank you. Councilman Davis and then Councilman Starr. We're back on.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to interrupt those really important questions, too. I'll just underscore part of my understanding to Councilman Starr's questions is that we are not allowed to distinguish between investors and homeowners in these cases. Through the chair, it's an equal protections concern, which is agonizing, because that's exactly what would be instinctually good policy to us, is clarifying the kinds of operators we want to support and the kinds of operators we want to take an extra look at. The idea that we can't is infuriating. The idea that our local suburbs can get away with running under the radar because, let's be honest, they're suburbs, they're not Cleveland, makes it tough. Anyway, I just have nothing but empathy. Where I really wanted to go is, just to clarify one additional point, this is a starting point, again, just as my colleague Councilman Hart said, and I am so excited to see this operationalized, enforced, to see the impact in our community. This doesn't have to be the end point. I am very open to additional ideas as we continue to implement this. If I don't get the changes in my community that I need, I plan to bring additional amendments in the future. I just want to underscore the governance philosophy that this is the start, not the end, that we can always amend, we can always legislate. If we can't crack down on the problems in our community through this, then let's go harder. And you know what? If this has unintended consequences that we aren't anticipating now around our housing markets and the availability of short-term markets altogether, or short-term rentals altogether, I'm very happy to address those as well. But again, we can't let the enemy of good be perfect. We need to do something now. Wanted to add that. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Harsh and then Councilman Starr.
Councilman Stark.
Councilman Starr?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
5 minutes for back one.
How many, what'd you say, Chair?
5 minutes, back on.
All right, if I need more time, add me back on, please.
No, we're only doing it once.
So we're gonna just rush this through?
Yeah, we're not rushing this through.
Okay.
We've been meeting for quite some time. So this was introduced. Colleagues had an opportunity to reach out to Rachel, Austin, to vet the process. And there's also still time before it goes to finance.
Okay, I just want to understand how we operate, and that's all.
Yeah, that's
how
how we
many?
operate.
Because we talking about reaching out and this and that.
Well, you've never reached out to me for any workforce piece for
You
us
know.
to have a dialogue. If I'm interested, I will reach out to you for getting more information.
Thank you, and I appreciate you, Madam Chair.
All right.
I know you said we've been vetting this for a couple years now.
Yes, we have been vetting
And I
this
just
for
want to
a
make
couple
sure I understand what is vetting. Vetting could be defined based on whose interpretation of it. So I will ask to the chair, how many short-term rentals are currently operating in Cleveland, legally or illegally?
I believe we were told it was about 900. Is that too many? I don't remember any. City planning said it was around 900,
All right,
I
from
believe.
that 900, how many complaints has the city received related to short-term rentals by each ward? Do we have any data on that? Through the chair?
I do not.
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, no, I do not believe we have that by word.
Do we have any data on how many short-term rentals are currently operating in one-family or limited one-family districts?
We do not, Madam Chair, to the councilman. I'm sure we can ask Planning and Zoning Administrator to get us some stats for you.
Okay. Through the chair, I appreciate that. Who will enforce the ordinance day-to-day? Through the chair, who's going to enforce all this?
Madam Chair, there are, I believe, the licensing, Madam Chair, The licensing scheme is through the
Licenses and assessments.
license and assessments. However, there is also power to 686B04. It's looked at by Building and Housing, City Planning, Public Health, and Public Safety. And then I believe the civil penalties
Any of those?
are any of the, yeah, it's multi-departmental based upon complaint driven. We wanted to make
complaints
sure we gave it as broad of an enforcement arm as possible.
So that mean broad, meaning multiple
More
departments
Departments, yes.
that can look into it, similar to how we look at what is it, residential, rental, what is it, the rental?
Rental registry?
Yes, the same way we look at that.
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, I'm unfamiliar how we're currently handling that, but I think that is looked at by, if you're telling me they're looked at by multiple departments, I can only tell you what this says. I'm unfamiliar with the rental
What I would
registry.
ask our attorney, Ms. Rachel, if she can elaborate on that. Is it similar to how we do the rental registration oversight or?
And I'm unfamiliar with the rental registry as well, sorry.
All right, because right now we're having a problem with keeping up with that. Now we're saying we're going to give all these departments an additional oversight to make sure they enforce. So I'm just trying to see how we're going to enforce this if we can't even enforce the current things that we currently doing.
Well, that's
But
an administrative question.
that's an administrative question, but oversight starts with council. Oversight starts with council. We passed the legislation to ensure that they're doing that. So I'm trying to see how we're going to hold them accountable to ensure they have the manpower, they have the staffing levels to be able to mandate this. So it starts with council. It's not just administration, just to be clear.
This ordinance will become effective 4 months after the passage date, so that they will have 4 months to determine how to administrate this ordinance.
And
Okay.
Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr, there's also a provision for, specifically for the Department or Division of Assessment and License for rules and regulations process for publication of that, and so that it's clear of what is looked at.
And then, thank you. And within this legislation, I know we had conversation talking about, I heard through the table, people, I think you all say that the legislation does not allow single-family usage. Is that something that I heard correctly? As far as this legislation, I believe, I was listening in on my air when I was coming in, so I'm trying to make sure. What
Madam
was
Chair, to Councilman Starr, I believe what you're talking about is that these are not allowed in limited single-family districts. They are first allowed in single-family districts. So the limited single-family district is the most restrictive district in the city. And that's consistent with the zoning code now that allows roomers and boarders first in single-family districts.
And with that case, can we have that added language into this actual legislation to make sure it's clear? Because it's confusing when you look at it.
I believe it's addressed, Madam Chair, to Councilman Starr in the provision that changes where it's first allowable districts, I think. 337.02. Thank you. Page 12, 337.02, where it is first allowed in a one-family district. So that is why that provision is there. So it is subsection F, where it first allows in one-family districts the short-term rental.
Thank you, and I'll wrap up. I think from this ordinance, I think we need to properly vet it to make sure it fits the needs. From the examples that I gave earlier, obviously, other certain cities have different owner occupancy rules and oversight. They also have short-term rental days that are allowed, similar to what our current ordinance have in place. And I just think, to me, I just say to the viewing public, I believe this is more so being rushed than us actually vetting it. Rather they said talk to this person or not, I don't think we properly vetted it fully to make sure it does what all of us want to see. And that's just my own opinion.
Thank you, great
Madam
points,
Chairman,
thank you.
may I have one clarification to Councilman Starr? You wanted to know the number of complaints overall citywide and as also broken down by ward if it exists, is that correct? So I want to make sure I Forward, you're correct.
Yes, I would like to see each ward break down what is currently happening, what is currently operating, who is the ones who have the most Airbnbs, and so we can get an understanding of what
Okay.
we're doing, and because that brings context and value to what we are actually doing.
So
If you have a ward that may have a whole bunch of short-term rentals versus another ward, and they haven't been able to give their full vetting and of this legislation, then what?
So you want both the numbers of, if we have them by overall and by ward, if it's broken down, as well as complaints? I just want to make sure I have the correct information you're looking for. Thank you.
Yep, that is
Councilman
perfect.
Harsh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for anybody that's just wondering, rules of council do fall back on Robert's rules, which says you can go back on one time. So I'm going to use my second time to go back on. So again, with the guiding principle, not letting perfect be the enemy of good, the city of Cleveland's never made an effort to license short-term rentals. This is our effort to do that. We're kind of getting caught up. It's difficult to count the number of short-term rentals because they're not licensed, because there's no regulation. There's no way to actually know except to go on the Airbnb website and see how many are available that day. It's really kind of impossible for us to get that number. This will give us the tools to actually start counting that, which is a good thing for us. So I just wanted to, oh shit, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, hang on. I won't be 5 minutes. Here's the end of the story for me. There are 1,000 different approaches to this problem, and you can look at 1,000 different municipalities in America that are all trying different ways of dealing with this, because this is a problem everywhere from the East Coast to the West Coast and everywhere else. Some small cities have attempted to straight up ban Airbnb. There are municipalities, they're typically small, that have passed laws banning Airbnb. And I suspect that they haven't lost yet because nobody's decided to open up an Airbnb in that city. And when somebody decides to open up an Airbnb in that tiny little town, somebody will sue and they will win. The state of Ohio right now is working on a bill that will actually reduce home rule in the state of Ohio to prevent us from regulating Airbnbs. And we are kind of racing against the clock because while legislators in Columbus like to talk about states' rights, they are not a big fan of municipal rights. So whenever they can take away our home rule, they do. And they're working on it right now. And so we're trying to get ahead of that as well. There's a little bit of urgency to this. The last thing is that I know that there is a lot that can be said about zoning use, and it's absolutely a fact that we have commercial zones and we have residential zones. And I could not turn my house into a corner store. I could not start selling scratchies and milk at the Harsh Corner Store on my street and let people walk in and buy things, because that is commercial use. And we do not allow that in residential zones. And you could make, I think, a very strong argument that Airbnb is commercial use. However, if you made that argument, you would have to apply that blanket across the entire city for all things, and that would create a whole new headache. What we're accomplishing today is a registration through licensure that allows us to know where these are operating and gives us enforcement mechanisms to shut down the bad actors. This is a major step forward for all of us, for all of our neighborhoods, and I am going to ask my colleagues to support this legislation, and let's sit on it very closely for a year. Let's watch. Let's keep an eye on it. And as Councilman Starr said, yes, we can pull this off the shelf and we can look at it again. We absolutely have that right. Just yesterday, we pulled something off the shelf from 9 years ago, right? And we adjusted it because the times had changed. So I would encourage everybody to support this. This is not perfect, but it is good, and it is far better than what we've had. So thank you, Madam Chair, for all your work on this. I want to commend you and everybody who's worked on this. Again, this has been 6 years in the making. I had meetings about this, I think, the summer I got here. I started hearing about this and started coming in over the summer during summer sessions when we would come in while there weren't a whole lot of us in town, just talk about this. And Chairman Hairston was the one convening those meetings back in the day, 3 years ago. But yeah, we were having these meetings, and this has been a long time coming. So thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing this to the table and for helping us get this over the finish line.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gray.
I'm just going to be short and brief. I want to just agree with all my colleagues. We all have our different reasons why we want this to pass and also want us to vet it more. And I understand that. But like I said earlier, Chair, to the team, that this is a difficult decision. We know nothing's perfect, but we got to start somewhere. When I came in as well, I'm agree with my colleague Harsh, I started sitting with McCormick, who was on it, Councilman McCormick. So he started teaching me and helping me to understand about the short-term rentals because I started getting complaints from the residents in Cleveland Shaker, but they also across the board in my ward as well as at various in various areas. So maybe all councils wasn't aware of the discussions that other councils was giving these meetings per se. So a lot of us are not on board on a lot of things. But however, when we do get on board, yes, sometimes we feel behind, sometimes we feel that all the questions have not been answered. But in the long run, things can be amended as Councilman Davis has stated. But it comes to a time that we need to make some decisions to stop what's been going on and has been hindering these neighborhoods, and the residents cannot take it. I'm just going to say this. The residents in Cleveland Shaker came to City Hall and had a meeting with one of the attorneys, Dennis Butler. They came here with me, and they had a meeting with Attorney Butler 2 years ago about the Airbnbs in Cleveland Shaker that was causing so much havoc they couldn't take it. So residents have been involved, came to the table, and like I always express, you keep your residents at the table. You keep them first. You keep them involved because they are the ones that came to us to change this ordinance because they can't take certain things anymore. And to say to my colleague, Councilman Starr, to say to, to also say to find the complaints to the, to the attorneys, please reach out to our director of safety, Director Drummer, because a lot of these complaints have to go to your district. So a lot of the residents did call their district to complain. Then they called me, and I worked with the commanders at the district for them to understand where these Airbnbs were. So, so if you want to do some more investigation, reach out to the district because they have those complaints too. So I just want to put that in, and I'm going to support this. I'm going to support this ordinance because I'm going to continue get these complaints from our, from our residents dealing with the bad, dealing with the bad actors. So I yield.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And just on both points, Councilman Stars and yours, I think 15%, six properties on one street is way too much. I think we should go down on maybe like a 10%. I'm not sure if.
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to make that amendment. I would ask through the chair, since we have both the administration and council, when we do area restrictions and say 15% or 25% or whatever, 5%, is there any legal precedent on the percentage number, or is it just the number the legislative body agrees to?
This was researched long ago. I have in a long ago note here that one density limitation in Texas was 12.5% of the total residential units. I'd have to go back and look at where, if I got the 15% from somewhere specific, but I don't see a reason why we can't go lower.
Okay.
Like a lower percentage.
And Madam Chair, I believe it is a rational basis, so if you determine what that rational basis is, if you just articulate and clarify why you would do that, I believe it is defensible. I'm supposed to talk closer to the mic, sorry, Inez. Okay. So as long as you articulate specifically what is your finding of the rational basis to make that decision, I believe that is our standard and is defensible.
10%. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to amend that we change the 15% area limitation to 10%
Do
of
I have
residential units.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Councilman.
Through the chair, I think a 10% limitation would make sense. My only concern is this is not what we've been proposing to the community or stakeholders for the last 6 months. The change at the table, having had many conversations with operators, with the tourism industry, with residents, with block clubs, it's always been 15%. So while I have no personal qualms about 10%, I'll be a no on this amendment because it's not what we've been talking about.
Got it, thank you. And I would just say, I never received a hard number of how many properties that would be per street until today, which was 6 properties, which I think is too many properties on a street.
Agreed.
So, any other discussion? Can you call the vote
On the amendment?
on the amendment? Yes.
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 Oh, that was the wrong committee.
Star.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, amendment passes. Okay. Which is
I
approved.
have one more amendment to
You need me to read?
the original amendment. The administration has, here you go.
Yeah.
The administration has
Yeah.
made it pretty clear that they would like some extra time in between the passage date and the effective date to get everything together administratively. So they've asked for, instead of 120 days, which is 4 months, 180 days, which is 6.
So, Madam Chair, I would like to proffer an amendment to amendment number 7. This is in section 5, line 4, strike 90 and insert, instead of 120, insert 180. Does the law have that? Yes. Okay.
Thank
Can I
you.
get a second for the amendment to the
second.
amendment?
Second.
That was the second.
Okay. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any no, okay.
May I
All the
just-
yeas have it.
May I simply
Please
say
put-
for nerds out there, government nerds, you can amend an amendment, but you cannot amend an amendment to an amendment.
Okay.
You can amend an amendment, but you cannot amend an amendment to an amendment.
Got it. Okay, so any other questions on ordinance number 561-2026? Hearing no other question, 561-2026 stands approved. Do we have to vote on it as amended? Do we have to vote on it as a zoning piece or? No, we're good, okay. So 561-2026 stands
Sign that
approved.
bad boy. Let's
Sign
do it.
on,
Sign up.
yes.
We did it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, no, we still got some
I
time.
think we did the hard part.
Yeah.
I think we hammered it out.
Next up, I have ordinance number 594-2020. Oh, I'm sorry, you have to call the roll again. So we're closing the zoning portion of it. Please call the roll. Present.
Here.
Here.
Thank you. So ordinance number 594-2026 by Councilmember Star, Santana, and Griffin, an emergency ordinance approving the addition of certain property located at 629 Euclid Avenue to the Northeast Ohio Advanced Energy District, accepting and approving a petition and plan from a property owner in the district proposing a special energy improvement project, declaring it necessary to conduct special energy improvement project, providing for the assessment of the cost of such special energy improvement project, authorizing the Director of Development to enter into energy project cooperative agreement and a special assessment agreement to implement the project and declaring an emergency. Director?
Good
Hello, hello.
morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Today I'm joined by Bobby Bruno, who has been working on this project, and Jeff Goss, who is the legal representation for this project team. I will turn it off to Bobby, who will present this request.
Good morning to the chair and to the committee. So happy to present a PACE property assessed clean energy financing project to you all this morning. After all the discuss about lodging, this is a hotel project we're talking about here downtown. So I'll start with a little bit about PACE before we talk about the project. So this is the financing tool that it is private finance debt, not city dollars, and those are paid back on a special assessment over and above property taxes. So creative financing mechanism for clean energy and green energy improvements to properties. In terms of the project we're discussing today, this is the conversion of the property at 629 Euclid from a Holiday Inn to an AC by Marriott. So this will be a large-scale renovation of the property to keep it competitive as a hotel in the downtown market. Regarding the financing and the request today, so this, as I described, will convert the hotel to a new flag. It'll continue the 141 hotel rooms, lobby, and amenity space, which will be renovated. The owner is 629 Euclid Hotel 2 LLC. That's the entity. So Mr. Marin and Mr. Patel are leading that entity. The financing itself is coming from the Port Authority, up to $7 million for a term up to 23 years. We know that longer term can be a benefit for the property owner. And the types of energy efficient improvements will be things like HVAC controls, building envelope, low flow plumbing fixtures, and things of that sort. And so this special assessment to pay back that loan would be semi-annual payments similar to your property taxes up to just under $300,000 a year. And with that, happy to offer Mr. Goss any chance he would like to speak or answer any questions.
It'll turn green. Press hard where it says press. There you go.
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Goss. I am general counsel to the MRN family of companies. MRN has owned or controlled this property for the last 20 years. It was actually one of our first redevelopment projects. MRN, as you probably know, has a long history of redeveloping properties within the city of Cleveland, including East 4th Street, including the very active redevelopment of the Carriage Company project on West 25th Street, and this is now yet another step in our continuing efforts to, redevelop historic properties. The PACE financing that is part of this, that we are asking for your support, is part of a $35.5 million capital stack, supported by senior debt from Unified Bank, supported by about $6 million in federal and state historic tax credit equity, another $5 million in member equity. It's bringing construction jobs, it's increasing, it's replacing the Holiday Inn Express, and it's going to actually almost double our workforce because we're going to reutilize space in order to bring in a restaurant, so we'll even have more employees than we used to. We think it's a very positive project. It's an upgrade from the Holiday Inn Express to a more
Trendy, kind of.
Thank you. Thank you for finding an appropriate word for me. We think it's a great project. We hope you do too, and we'd ask for your support.
Good, thank you. I had one question and it kind of just slipped my mind. But anyhow, any questions from my colleagues? Councilman, I had a question before. Councilman Starr, this is in his ward. Is he supportive? Do you have a support letter that we
Yes.
put on file?
Yes,
Okay.
he's in support, and we do have a support letter on file.
Got it, okay. Councilman Davis?
It's just very briefly, excited to see PACE financing for this property downtown. Whenever you're ready for automatic PACE financing legislation, I'm here to provide complete support for that. This is free money for clean energy type
Yeah.
upgrades. I think we should always say yes. So thank you.
I do agree. I think PACE should be on all developments
Yes.
taking place.
All that we
So,
can. Thank
any
you.
other questions from my, okay,
If
go
I
ahead.
could
You want to
just
answer?
support that.
Yes.
This is our second large redevelopment project in the last 2 years. The prior one on West 25th Street also had PACE financing. It's a great tool.
Got it, okay. Any questions from my colleagues? No questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Awesome.
Where's this hotel? I'm looking at the picture, I just can't visualize it.
It is,
629 Euclid.
629 Euclid is the building that could best be described as being between the PNC Tower and Marble Room. It's the historic New England building. If you drive down Euclid right now, you'll see.
Oh, right there.
You'll see construction right in front of it, and we're doing some facade work on the upper floors, so
Okay.
you won't see an entrance, but it's there.
Okay, yeah, when you said PVC tower, right next door to it, okay.
Yes.
All right, that's the only question I had.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no, Hearing no other questions, ordinance number 594-2026 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you, Director. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for investing in our city. Next up, I have ordinance number 620-2026 by council members Harsh, Santana, Casey, Slife, and Griffin, an emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement on construction of solar power generation facilities, authorizing directors of finance, public utilities, and/or port control as appropriate to enter into one or more contracts for making of improvement, authorizing other contracts for the purchase of items or other services not covered under a public improvement, and to accept gift grants and other funding for improvements. Director?
Hi, good morning, Chairwoman and council members, committee members. Thank you for having us and hearing this legislation today.
Director.
Under the U.S. EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Implementation Program, the City of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, City of Paynesville earned grant funding in 2024 as a coalition of governments seeking to implement solar projects on former brownfields, such as landfills. For Cleveland, we'll be putting city-owned assets to landfills to use that result in cost savings for Clevelanders. Short note, on your tablets, you should see two sites. One is Coltoff Road Landfill. This is just south of the airport in the IX Center. That will be a project that benefits the airport energy costs. And the other site is at West 11th and Spring Road Landfill, formerly known as Bradbury Landfill. That will benefit CPP and its customers. We are seeking authorization from council to enter into, for the Department of Utilities, Port Control, and Finance with support and coordination from my office, Mayor's Office of Sustainability. We're seeking authority from council to complete these solar projects in Cleveland through design, build, and other applicable contract agreements. And this information was presented to Planning Commission on May 1st and Utilities on May 14th, and presented to Airlines on April 13th with their approval.
Got it, and I see that utilities passed that, Director. So 14 million, 882?
Yes.
505, okay.
To the chair. That is the amount of grant funding. And then there is approximately $9 million in tax credits that will pay for the projects.
That's awesome. Is this the first time we received this?
Yes,
Director?
Madam Chair. So this is the significant grant through the US EPA, but for CPP, these kind of dollars, and we've looked at these kind of projects before at Coltoff and through CPP, and it's just not feasible without some of these grant dollars. So
Got it.
we're willing
Congratulations.
to invest our customers' dollars for the, in anticipation of the tax credits and/or just the payback from local generation. So significant opportunity for us, and we're happy to participate.
Got it. Where are we at with like residential solar panels?
Sure, residential solar panels on homes.
Yes.
So there are a lot of different programs that residents can participate in. There is a program that CPP has. They have information on their website. There's also programs through the county and that they have worked on as well.
Got it.
So and
Okay.
we've advertised those through our Mayor's Office of Sustainability.
Yeah. Director, do you see a lot of our residents applying for these services, like, solar panel?
Yeah, so on the residential side, Madam Chair, we have seen certainly an uptick, and we're happy to participate for our customers. And there's a whole lot of different approaches to local generation, community solar, this type of commercial grade solar, which directly reduces what our customers pay immediately once it starts generating. And then the rooftop behind the meter kind of generation that's at the customer's selection. It's what they select to do, but we support it, and we will have an ordinance coming up to talk about it a little more this summer with Chairman Casey. So
Got it.
hopefully we'll continue that dialogue. But yes, we
Okay.
have seen an uptick.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions, Councilman Harsh?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very excited to see this come to the table today. Happy to see the Bradley Road landfill get converted into something productive to help our grid. I do need to ask one question. A constituent asked me about the wildlife. We believe that deer and maybe some coyotes have been nesting back there, probably not next to each other, but in that general vicinity. And in looking at solar farm over north of Memphis in the city of Brooklyn, there are clear lanes where deer could walk, but I think they can also duck underneath them. The coyotes certainly. Through the chair, could somebody address the impact this has on wildlife that potentially nest and live in this area?
Sure, through the chair, we have worked with the US EPA in doing an evaluation of the site. So they have what's called cross-cutting, and they look at environmental impacts, and they have done a review of both of the sites and have not found any significant impacts. For the wildlife, we would have generally, thinking about the project that you mentioned on Memphis Road, I have not, we can follow up and see if they've had any issues with the wildlife there, but I don't believe that they have. I have not heard of any issues there. We will be, if you look at the site on your tablet, there is an area, and Councilman Harsh, we've walked through there.
Yep.
There's an area where we would not impact, the solar field would not impact the natural landscape that's there. For example, the ravine with a little bit of water going through on purpose. So there would still be essentially wildlife pathways, if you would, that would make more sense than going through solar panels.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Essentially, the area acts as a clearing surrounded by different, coverage and wildlife habitat, that we will not be impeding on that coverage and overgrowth, undergrowth, whatever. We will be just using the clearing, and the coyotes don't nest out in the open.
Through the chair, correct.
Okay. Thank you. That was my only question. Appreciate
Thank
this.
you.
Happy to see this come to the table today.
Any other questions? No? Okay, hearing no other questions, ordinance number 620-2026 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Is this the first time you sit in DPS, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Welcome. Yeah.
I had to bring him here.
Thank you all. Yeah. Next up, last but not least, ordinance number 609-2026 by Councilmember Santana and Griffin, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of City Planning to exercise the second option to renew contract number PS 2024-0030 with Stantec Consulting Service, Inc. to provide professional service for on-call planning services. Director.
Good morning, Chairwoman Santana and committee members. I'm here before you today to ask for your authority to execute a second annual option to renew and allocate $200,000 of our 2026 planning departmental budget for professional services on this on-call contract. So this contract is with Stantec as the primary and includes 2 Cleveland small businesses within the contract as well, Seventh Hill, which helps us primarily with community engagement, and Regency, which is more on the technical side if we need engineering, traffic counts, things like that to supplement. This contract is especially helpful to us because it allows us to very nimbly and efficiently move forward with planning-related projects as needed as come up through the year. So you see in your legislative summary the types of projects that we have used this for in the past. It is also helpful to us because they have a wide array of experts within their consultancy, and so we can really tap on what type of expertise that we need. Some examples outside of traditional planning services that we have used them for include market analyses to help inform city planning and city infrastructure investments in certain areas. Another example is we were able to work with a fire protection engineer on some fire code compliance questions we had around zoning code that otherwise without this we wouldn't be able to tap into those deep wells of expertise. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have or talk about any of the projects in further detail.
I would tell you, I love Seven Hills. I mean, they come with some pretty cool exercise to engage the residents. So, but how long would you say after this contract? I mean, if we pass, how much longer do we need this group to do the engagement piece?
So operationally, we would like to have an on-call contract bid out, formalized, authorized at all times, just because it does allow us to tap those sort of as-needed services. For this specific contract, we have one additional one-year option to renew that we may come back to planning, City Council for authorization to renew. And then beyond that, we would put out a new request for proposal and seek proposals from any assortment of consultants.
Got it. Okay. Any questions from my colleagues?
Madam Chair, through the chair, this is $200,000 from your budget that we allocated. And your opinion is that this is a good use of city planning budget?
That's correct.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'm always trying to talk to the TV because people watch this and I want them to learn about our processes. Even though we allocated this during the budget, they still have to ask us because it's more than 50,000.
Yes.
And I approve.
Yeah. Got it. Yes, exactly. Any other questions from my colleagues? Okay. Yes, Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. This is the first time, this is my first time even being on DPS, but could you, I'm just going over the city planning on what this company does. So is this the same company that always work with city planning on doing everything that is listed here and the following tasks that is showing, like East 55th Safety Study, Payne Avenue Stripping Plan, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the studies that they work with city planning?
That's
Chair,
correct.
to
These
the
are the
director.
tasks that they have performed under this same contract in the past.
Okay.
We don't work with them on everything. There are many projects that we issue specific RFPs for and have consulting teams that respond and are awarded to those specific RFPs.
Okay, and could you just dive in a little bit more why they do these tasks?
Yes,
This is my first time, so-
the value of an on-call
Chair, to the
contract,
director.
through the chair to the councilwoman, for us, it allows us to do tasks sort of on an as-needed basis. So as you may be familiar, when we have a big planning initiative coming up, we sort of know in advance. So one example is the form-based code RFP that we were here a couple of weeks ago asking for authorization for. That will be a specific RFP specifically for the scope of work that builds out, refines, updates the form-based code. It takes us time to get individual legislation, put out the RFP, evaluate and score the proposals, and select the winning consultant, and then go through the contracting process to do that large, specific project. This contract is on call, so it's a little bit more nimble. So we go through the legislation, the bidding, and the contracting up front, and then we have the ability to work with them on specific tasks. So when we see a need, for example, or when there's often a council or community request. One example is some transportation needs around the Market District in Ohio City that we're looking at. We can work on a much shorter time frame to deploy planning resources or, for example, an expert opinion that we need. It just allows us to flow with the work and the demands more quickly than if we have to go out for procurement for every single small thing.
Okay, all right. Okay, just learning the process of what
Yeah, no, that's
city
good.
planning does and how you work with this consulting company, you know, to get what you need to know, to get what you need to do in your department. All right, thank you.
And I would say that many of them are very grassroots, because I know, like I said, Vision Zero, I think some other areas, they came out to our community. So if you need them at your community meeting, you let director know, and they'll go to your community meetings, and they'll get some input from your residents. Yeah, got it.
To the chair, to that point, that's one thing we really like about this consultant mix that we have here. There are the local folks who are on the ground, and then we have access to this sort of national, international network of experts when we need to
Yes.
go deep.
Got it, okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, hearing no other questions, ordinance number 609-2026 stands approved. Thank you, Director. This is the end of our legislation, and so development planning sustainability is called to, oh, no, it's being adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
The other one.
The other one.